Thank you, everyone who came, taking time out of your day. I'm really excited to talk about how to carve your own path. Should I just start with a little bit about myself, Unica?
Yeah.
So I've been in the mental health and wellness space for a few years now. I've done a lot of work with jack.org. They're a Canadian youth mental health organization, and so I've done a lot of public speaking with them and coaching and facilitating conversations about important things like mental health and wellness. I think it's important that there's conversation about that because there's a lot of stigma that we need to smash about some topics, and creating a safe space. I know Unica and I were just saying creating a safe space to talk about these topics is really important. So throughout this workshop, I'm going to be asking some questions. There's no pressure, absolutely, to respond. You can engage in the chat box. You can self-reflect, whatever you're comfortable with. But I encourage you to take time to reflect to yourself if you're not sharing. Okay, perfect. So how to carve your own path. I think it's important that we all remember that each of us has a different journey. And I'll share a little bit with you about my own personal journey and 5 points about how I've been able to really hone into my unique interests and passion and path, and some of the elements that are important for us to discover our values and be able to live life more on our own terms and more fully. All right, so I already talked a little bit about myself, so I'll just get right into it. This photo right here is of me traveling. I was on a hike in Vietnam at the time, near a town called Sapa. So I did this really strenuous, physically and mentally strenuous hike overnight. And traveling, I believe, is one way that we can really explore our interests and follow our passion, because we get to meet different people, try new things, learn about different cultures. So I have a few questions here that we can reflect on. But before we get into that, I just wanted to start with a few minutes of a visualization. So this is going to be a bit of a mindfulness activity. So I don't know if any of you guys have done a mindfulness-based practice before. Maybe in the chat box we can answer that. Anyone done any meditation or yoga or visualization? How can I see the chat, Unica?
I can read off what people are saying. So everyone's saying yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
I love yoga, mindfulness. Maybe it's because you're sharing your screen, so you're not able to see it. But yeah, that's we've got some engagement in the chat so far. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, so you can take your screen off if that makes you feel more comfortable. I'm going to stay on and guide you through a short visualization meditation. So just take a moment to feel your feet on the ground and feel your body sitting on a chair, on the couch, or wherever you are. And just let yourself arrive. And take a big breath in and big breath out. And now I want you to imagine a place that you feel most at peace at. Your happy place. It could be the beach, it could be your backyard. Think of that space, whatever that is to you. And notice some of the colors in your environment there. And maybe some of the things you hear could be waves, or if you're outdoors, it could be the wind, or maybe it's just stillness. There's no sound. And as you're sitting there or laying down, feeling at peace and so in your zone and happy and fulfilled in your happy place, you see someone in the distance walking over to you. And as they come closer, you see that it's your best friend. So you're super excited. Your best friend's coming over to hang out with you in your peaceful spot, whether that's on the beach, in the forest, maybe in your living room or even your bedroom. And they sit down and you guys have a little chat, and they ask you these 3 questions. Hey, what is one thing you've been wanting to do and have been putting off? What is that thing that you've been yearning to do, you've been curious about, and you've been wanting to do? And you think about that for a second. And you share maybe some of the things that you've been passionate, or you've been interested in exploring, but haven't necessarily had the time or felt like it was too scary to try something new. And that friend is encouraging and supportive, and they encourage you to follow that thing. And they say, however you pursue that, I'm there to support you. Now, that friend could be your higher self. It could be your actual best friend. And as you take in what this exercise is bringing up, open your eyes and reflect on some of the ideas that came up. What is one thing you've been wanting to do and have been putting off? Some other questions to consider are, what gets you most excited to talk about? And if you had unlimited time and money, what is it that you would be doing? So these are some questions to consider. Oftentimes we have to slow down and connect to ourselves to remember those things that maybe we get too busy with everyday life, with our responsibilities or with stress. Right now, we're all in a bit of a stressful time, and sometimes we forget those things that bring us joy. So hopefully this meditation, visualization helped you connect with some of those ideas. And I would love if any of you would share what came up for you. If you feel comfortable, there's no pressure. We can share in the chat as well. I know that Unica can see it. She can share.
Yeah, I think people are taking their time as well. But what I've written down is, for number 1, because I'm earning a certificate in yoga teaching training, I think that's something that I'm currently pursuing that, but it's just I need some time to practice my my yoga teaching style. So that's something that I've been putting off, just due to being as a full-time student. But that's something that I'm definitely going to do maybe once I graduate this year. The second thing I put on the chat is any topics that excite me is health and wellness in general, fitness related as well, business, coaching, student advocacy, arts and crafts, creating initiatives, and if I had unlimited time and money, maybe what I'd be doing is probably start a life and wellness coaching business. And then others have put down getting back to exercising, woodworking, pursuing medicine, science, health equity, taking care of plants. If they
I
have,
love that.
it's so cute. Yeah. And just note that you don't have to share this. It's just, you can keep this to yourself as well. You can put it down in a notebook or anywhere that it's safe for you to keep. But
For
I like
sure.
this. This is really good exercise.
I was a little nervous. I was like, I want to make mindfulness activities accessible. And I think like a lot of us think that like visualization or meditation is like really woo woo and we have to be like super spiritual. And really, it doesn't necessarily have to be. Like, it's just about slowing down and connecting to how we feel and maybe what we need or where we're at. Like, it's really that simple.
We also have another example. One thing that someone has been wanting to do but have been putting off is reading before they sleep. The things that excites them most about just topic based is community health, mental health, youth development, and then the third one they wrote is traveling, and also lots of wanting lots of plants. LOL. Yeah,
I love that. I think this is so relatable, just like, and I'm glad. Thank you so much for sharing these, Unica. I'm not able to access the chat, so it's just really cool to feel connected. Because during this time, I think where a lot of us are feeling isolated. So having a conversation and being able to discuss these things and some ideas that maybe we haven't thought about, like having plants, like it really adds a lot of energy to a room, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm gonna go on to the next slide here. Okay, so yeah, the first part of carving our own path was exploring our interests and following curiosity. So traveling is one of those things, but exploring the topics that interest you, like you can take a course, you can do a workshop. There's so many ways to do that. Like you can self-teach, you can, whether it's going to school for a specific thing, like you can explore that in so many ways, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a big thing. Like I know someone said reading before bed, like that's such a small little step, so it doesn't always have to be a big thing. That the trip in this photo is a 2-month trip I went on, but honestly some of my memorable trips have been like to like California or places in Canada where I live, so it doesn't necessarily have to be this glamorous big trip that we go on to learn more about ourselves. Okay, so the second point on carving our own path is to lean into discomfort and vulnerability. So what I mean by that is a lot of times the things that we want to do or maybe that will help us grow can be a little uncomfortable or can push us outside of our comfort zone. Like public speaking for me, it's something I'm still getting comfortable with, but it's something I'm really passionate about, and being able to connect and have conversation, I think really it's more than just presenting for me. I think having engagement and reflection is really important. So that's something that it can be uncomfortable for me and very vulnerable, but I find is really powerful as well. So a lot of the things that make us uncomfortable also make us excited. You might notice that with certain things that you've done that have opened your eyes to new things or caused you to grow, have also been a bit uncomfortable. Brene Brown is, I don't know, does anyone know of Brene Brown? She's an author. She has a TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability. Yes, Unica, put a heart. Can you raise your hand or put a heart if you've heard of her? So her definition of vulnerability, she's a researcher in Texas and a teacher and a TED Talk speaker. She's got a great following too on Instagram. So she talks about vulnerability being uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, and that vulnerability is not winning or losing, it's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's our greatest measure of courage. And then she, in one of her books, which I actually have here, is called Daring Greatly. And she quotes this passage from Theodore Roosevelt's speech called The Man in the Arena. It was in 1910, and he spoke at La Sorbonne in Paris. And this passage, basically, not to drag it on too much, but basically is talking about how it's not about whether you win or you lose, it's about showing up. And that the people who are in the seats, or the critics who are not in the arena, don't have a say, because they're not actually doing the thing, and it's about doing the thing. So that's essentially what that means. Next. The third part of carving our own path is letting go of comparison. I wanted to focus mainly on social media here. I know that social media can be such a great tool to get inspired. I know a lot of us probably follow accounts that really share valuable information that can be very educational. But I find there's a lot of content out there that still can cause us to feel like we're not enough, because it's showing an unrealistic image or ideal. So with social media, I found personally having healthy boundaries. So for example, in the morning, I try not to go on social media for the first hour of my day, to take some time to do some of the things that feel good to me, that help me feel grounded and connected to myself. Because then I feel like I go into the day not thinking so much about what other people are doing on social media. I'll follow accounts, but I'll be more mindful, and I feel a lot more grounded within myself. I won't just follow an account or look at content and immediately go into shame or self-comparison or criticism. So it's about being mindful, and maybe that means unfollowing some accounts that are actually toxic, or they don't feel like they're actually adding to our life. So I don't know if anyone has any ideas on this. That's kind of all I have to say about letting go of comparison. I think comparison can be, there's a quote, comparison can be the thief of joy. And it really, it's important that we remember everyone's on a different journey. And if you're comparing yourself at one point in your journey to where someone is at another point in the journey, it's not fair to ourselves. We owe it to ourselves to celebrate what we're doing and not be constantly measuring where that is in comparison to other people. So maybe Unica, if there's anyone who's shared, no pressure, there's not much, maybe we don't have anything to share about this, but thought I'd open that up.
Yeah, one thing that's been helpful for me, because obviously it's hard to let go of social media, and sometimes you use it to get inspired. What I do is just to kind of declutter, I unfollow, users that have I have no longer interest in them, or if it's depleting my energy. I try to, just kind of figure out, okay, what is something that's inspiring me, or what is something that is not inspiring. I would just determine those two. This is just based on my own interpretation or my own way of approach. But I don't know about everyone else, but it's just that's helpful for me personally, is to distinguish between what inspires me and what isn't, what's depleting me and what's draining me. But another thing that's also been helpful is, I don't know if you guys are Android users or iPhone users, but on iPhone, there's a function where you could turn off your screen time. They set a notification, by 10 o'clock, no more social media, or by 6 or by 8 a.m. So I usually do that, because every time I log into my phone, if I want to go to an app, I cannot open it because I disabled that through a setting somewhere. But that's another thing that I would go about it if I want to avoid this draining, the social media draining consumption. But
yeah, that's being mindful with, because I don't think it requires us that we completely delete our account. I think we can recognize what is filling us up, what's inspiring us versus what is draining us. And a lot of times, it can be anything. It can be the people we surround ourselves with. It doesn't necessarily have to be social media, but I find social media right now, because we're doing everything virtually, can really have a huge impact. Was there anything in the chat that we won't?
I don't see anything in the chat as of now. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Just something to consider. And maybe if you do feel like social media can be a little overwhelming, considering setting a boundary in the morning or at night to be able to have a morning or evening routine off social media, so that when we go into our day, we are mindful with the way we interact with social media. Okay, so next is find role models. So this has been really huge. As you can see, this image is from the Avengers. I don't know if y'all are Marvel, y'all are Marvel fans, but this is just to show role models don't necessarily have to be people that we know personally or even real people. They can be anyone that lives and embodies the values and the vision and some of the things that we are working towards or that inspire us. So it could be a fictional character. It could be someone from a movie that we maybe see part of ourselves in, or we see them doing something that we would like to do. I find that for me, having role models has given me more perspective as to like where I can be in the future. So having common values with our role models is usually what attracts us, but it could be anything, like someone who's in a career that maybe we're working towards, who we see as a mentor or a role model. So take a moment to think about who inspires you in your life. And again, it can be a friend, it can be a parent, it can be someone you follow on Instagram, it can be a teacher, it can be someone from a book, someone from a movie, it can be a stranger you met and had a 5-minute conversation with. It really can be anyone. So take a moment to just think about that, 1 or 2 people maybe. And the final part, which actually I'm going to focus on and really shine more of a light to today, is create a support system. So that has helped me personally to stay on my path and stay connected to what matters to me most. I think especially during the time that we're in right now, having a support system is so important for our mental health, for our overall well-being. And I'm going to share a short excerpt from sort of my journey. So in high school, I struggled with my mental health. That was something I had no information or education about. There was no conversation in my school, and nor was there in my family. And so I really felt alone in my struggles. And it was through that experience that I actually learned about the tools that I needed to use to take care of my mental health, and about reaching out, and that reaching out is actually a sign of strength. It's not weakness. Like, there were so many things I had to learn through that experience, but it actually led me to becoming a speaker on mental health. So I had to get support at that time in my life. And now I'm a huge advocate for therapy, getting a coach, getting any sort of support that you feel will help you on your journey. So some questions to reflect on here is, who's in your trust circle? So maybe that person in the visualization meditation that I led earlier on is that person in your life that you would turn to if you were struggling or if something was going on that you felt was really vulnerable and hard to talk about. So just take a moment to think about who is in your, what I call trust circle. So who is one person that you trust, you feel comfortable with sharing something vulnerable with. And then the second question to self-reflect on is, what does support look like for you? So this is definitely a self-reflection. There's no need to share on this one. Support can look different for each of us. So sometimes we need a distraction. We just want to go on a walk, or we want to go do something fun. That may be what support looks like for you. Getting a friend and playing sports, or going to do something artsy, or going to an event, like that could be support. That could be self-care. It could also look like talking to a professional, and both are okay. Just this self-care and support looks different for each of us. So for me, I have a few really great friends in my life. I have a therapist, and I also rely on my family too for support. So my support system looks different than maybe your support system. So really, it's what it looks like for you and how you feel support feels best for you. And the third question here is, what does asking for help mean? I think there's still a lot of stigma around asking for help. I think especially right now, we really need to smash that stigma that it's not weakness. A lot of us are struggling with our mental health at times during, or just feeling positive during this time. So it's really important that we find those people that we trust and we feel comfortable to reach out, or we just practice that even though it can be scary. So those are the 5 parts on how to carve our own path. So explore your interests and curiosity. So that could be through traveling, it could be through taking on a new habit, it could be through finishing your yoga course. The second is find role models, lean into discomfort and vulnerability, create a support system, and then I think there was one more, try to remember, let go comparison. So hopefully those give you some insight into ways that you can explore what matters to you, and you can find ways to take care of yourself and do the things that matter to you. And finally, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. That's a quote I really like. And thank you for your time. I'd love to have a conversation or share any thoughts or anything that came up for you. Yeah, that's kind of it for me.
So much, Julie. By the way, if anyone wants to connect with Julie, do you mind, Julie, sharing your LinkedIn profile or your email if anyone wants to get in touch with you?
Yes.
I also dropped a feedback form in the chat, just in case, if there's anything that you really like about this workshop or any feedback. We're really open to all kinds of feedback, because we're here to always improve, and we want to make sure that we're able to provide to meet the needs from each individual. But otherwise, yeah, Julie, feel free to drop your contact on the Slack or in the chat. And if anyone else is also interested in following up for more updates, I will also drop in HEARO's Instagram and ASUW's Instagram, just for a follow-up, because we do upcoming events for this Try Something New campaign showcase. Otherwise, thank you so much, Julie, and for all of you guys for being here. This is fabulous and this is great. I love that visualization exercise. I feel so calm. Like, can you guys tell? Yeah, no, can you tell? Like, I was just boom, I was so excited. I was like, yes, let's get pumped. But then after this, my whole mind was just like, I feel so much at peace. I was pumping, guys. Like, I was just like smiling. I was like, but then after that, can you but anyways, thank you so much, Julie. I did not expect that. So that was great.
I just want to say, Unica, you're sharing and just creating a safe and positive space was really great. Also for me, like, this is the first time I've done a lot of speaking with a partner, and specifically on mental health. So this is me exploring some new uncomfortable territory, leading a visualization exercise, which is something I do on my own, but I've never led. So I was super nervous. So I just appreciate y'all for being here and spending your time while I try something new and share something that I want to share with you guys.
Otherwise, also, Julie is also open for a Q&A. If anyone has any questions, feel free to, we're happy to stay on for about 5 to 10 minutes. If anyone has any questions or just share any experiences or anything like that, we're gonna stay on for a little bit. Yay. Otherwise, we're just gonna, this is our final presentation.
Yeah, and if you have anything to share too, I'm all about sharing. So I'd love to hear some things that, even through the chat, and again, no pressure, but anything that came up that you were like, aha, like that's something that I've been wanting to do, or, like something that you felt was important for you. I'm reading through the chat now.
Can I share something?
Yeah,
thank you for presenting. I thought it was really interesting because I just graduated. So I'm like right now trying to navigate like what the path looks like for me. And oftentimes I feel really lost because like the last 20 years of my life was planned. And now I'm like, what do I do next? But right now, I'm working with an organization called Cities Rise, and they're based in New York, but they have cities around the world, and Seattle is one of them. And it's a global organization that focuses on mental health and having young people lead that conversation. So I was wondering if you have any information or input on that, and like how do you engage young leaders like us to have that conversation around our communities and just have like space for people to talk about, because oftentimes we are dealing with our mental health and it's like we don't have anyone to talk about it with each other. So I was just wondering if you have any advice to get young people like us just talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, thank you. That's a really great, and it's awesome you're getting involved in your community. I think any experience that gets us engaged in things that we think are important is great, and it's okay to not know. I just want to validate that. I think that all of us go through times when we feel lost, so you're not alone in that. And it's normal. Like, I think to actually find what we truly want to do, we need to explore a lot. I don't know anyone that is doing what they love and it's been like a straight path. So just wanted to validate that first. So my experience is with jack.org. They're a youth mental health organization. I've done public speaking with them. So they engage through talks in schools. And then also on Instagram, through Facebook. So they do lives. I don't know what, so your question specifically was how to have a conversation or how to share tools? Like, what specifically can I share on? Because I'm not exactly sure what.
Yeah, I guess both. How to start the conversation with young leaders so that they can have the conversation with their own communities. So like empowering young people to take initiative to talk about mental health. Do you have any like advice or suggestions that has worked in the past, and how have you seen that like working in those environments?
Yeah. Okay. I hear what you're saying.
It's a long question.
yeah. Like some things that are important to keep in mind. So yeah. I think Unica really talked about creating a safe space. I feel like that's really important because everyone's at different places in how they feel comfortable talking about, especially mental health, because it's something that carries stigma. Like it took me, like, so just to give a little perspective, as a speaker for jack.org, I didn't feel comfortable sharing a lot of personal details, especially at the beginning, but some speakers would share like details on like their mental health struggle. And it's important to be like, you don't need to share a lot to be relatable. Like, it's what you're comfortable with. It's important to, not to just create a safe space and not, everyone's going to share. Like, some people on Instagram share a lot about their lives. Some people, don't, and that's okay. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. Like, it took me a while. It took me years to be able to just say, like, I go to a therapist. Like, I know that sounds, but this is the first time I've actually said that in a presentation. So like now I'm very comfortable with it. So really respect your process. Like, it sounds like you're in a position where you can be the one to start a conversation potentially. Yeah. So like, think of what you'd like, making the conversation relatable. Oh, and another thing is, like, a lot of times we think about mental health and we think about mental illness, and sometimes like everyone has mental health. So whether we struggle with mental illness is important. We all have mental health. We all need to take care of our mental health. So ways to make the conversation relatable. It doesn't necessarily have to be, it can be a fun conversation. We can find ways to make it accessible is what I'm saying. Yeah, hopefully that answered. I'm just looking at the chat now and I love everything you guys shared. By the way, I love your background, Kira.
Thank you. It kind of makes me look like I don't have any hair in the back because it eats up my head, but
oh. You have your virtual plants going on.
Yeah, it's got my virtual plants. This is my dream behind me. I love that visualization exercise, because when I think about it, like when you let go of all the stress and you just breathe and like think about what you want to do, like I really enjoyed that. So I'm surprised it was your first time leading one, because it was very relaxing and very great. So.
Oh, that's very encouraging. Thank you so much. Well, I want to just say thank you to Unica, Kira, Chaman for having me here. It's been great connecting from Canada to Seattle.
Yeah, no, we're happy to have you. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your experience and your insight. Like, just we honestly appreciate your time doing this for just providing all this your insights with us. So yeah, happy to have you.
Oh, nice. Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and yeah, maybe we'll connect again for another talk.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you again, everyone.